Jesus is asked by the disciples to teach them to pray, and he responds with a word so brief we might miss it, with a challenge more piercing than we are prepared to face. When you pray. When, not if. Not if you believe in the power of prayer, not if you can find time as you rush to head out the door in the morning, not if you can take a break from your responsibilities during the day, not if you have energy as the twilight fades into the soothing deep darkness of night. He says, when you pray. How often is that? How often do we actually pray? When do we pray? Jesus doesn't have to lie to the disciples that he himself prays often. They see it. The passage itself begins with prayer. Jesus was praying in a certain place. The disciples knew well not to bother him, to interrupt him, to pester him while he was in prayer, not to complain to him about which disciple started a dispute, which disciple was slacking off. They waited until he was done. And one of the disciples asked Jesus, Lord, teach us to pray. Prayer is turning inward. It's seeing yourself, like taking a step back from being in the moment to observing yourself being in the moment. And you can take a step back from that as well and be aware of yourself, being aware of you being in the moment. Taking a step back, becoming aware, is helpful for each of us. We can analyze our habits of thought and word. We can pause to reflect why we do the things we do. We can entertain the possibility of change in our behavior and personality by looking inward, by praying. Maybe you can remember a period in your life when you've wanted to change who you are. And right now I'm going through one. I would like to be better at playing with my children. And with my younger son, I can entertain him and make him laugh. We have a great time, even if it's just going to the grocery store. But with my older son, I tend to flounder, trying to come up with activities and silliness. I'm more serious with him. I'm somehow convinced it's more important that I teach him, I tell him, I demonstrate for him with words how much he means to me, and I find myself still wanting to show him the world, to conjure on my phone or my computer videos of volcanic eruptions for him to watch. I want him to see newly discovered insects. I want him to see images of black holes light years away from us. I want him to learn and to know. But now an insecurity has grown in me that I'm not as fun with him as I am with his little brother. And I've wondered if something was lacking in my childhood. If I didn't have as many examples of how to be fun, how to relax, how to laugh, and I've found myself worrying and wanting to change my behavior and personality. And even worrying that I can't. But this week I saw my friend playing with his kids at the pool, and my sons joined in. Children tossed a beach ball, playing keep away from the monkey in the middle. My friend was the monkey. The father of my son's classmate. He entertained a dozen children, 4 years old to 9 years old, as he comically leapt for the ball each time it was passed, splashing around for 10 minutes. Not a single other parent had to worry about refereeing an argument or finding a snack in their bag. and I was jealous of my friend. I was in awe. I would never put myself in that position. It would never occur to me to be so boisterous. And I began to wonder, what kind of upbringing did he have that would give him the power to let loose and to play as a parent so lightheartedly and wholeheartedly? And I later shared with him I was really impressed by how well he could parent his children and be a playmate when called upon. And he explained to me he was the oldest of 7 children. And in my envy, I instantly imagined he grew up in some large farmhouse with a dozen people dwelling in each other's company. But he elaborated his childhood wasn't idyllic. His parents had struggled to be supportive of each other and had divorced when he was 3 years old. And they each later remarried, they each had more children. And then his parents divorced again. My friend's childhood was characterized by uncertainty, disruption, grief, and reinvention in the midst of unfamiliarity. He built a capacity for playfulness and affection out of the upheavals and disappointments he faced as a child. He grew beyond his background to become a source of joy to his loved ones and an inspiration to his neighbors like me. Though my friend didn't have a perfect childhood, he isn't lacking some key ingredient or some vital experience from his past in order to be the kind of person he wants to be. He doesn't dwell in excuses or settle for half measures. He is miraculously grounded in his identity as one both beloved and loving, both patient and forgiving, hopeful and inspired. And I share his story with you because it's my belief that we can all find our way to live as we wish we could, to love as fully and freely as both our loved ones and strangers around the world need us to. We don't have to have a perfect past. We don't need an unbroken heart to live tender-heartedly. We can move beyond our backgrounds to be a different kind of people, a holy people, a people who are rooted in reality and optimistic about our options. That's what it means to be connected to God and to reveal God to others in our actions and in our presence. To find our shelter in the truth of things, rather than assemble some fortress out of our delusions. I think what it requires is for us to take moments of silence in the midst of our day, when we are busy and careworn, when we are frazzled or upset, when we would rather not stop because we're finally making progress in some project or some goal. We must adopt a pattern of stopping, perhaps 5 minutes out of every 30. Instead of reflexively reacting to a setback, instead of resorting to an ingrained predisposition, or to retreating to an outdated rationalization, instead of telling ourselves nothing will ever be different, instead, we can pause and look inside ourselves without flinching. We can step back from the moment, and accompanied by God, we can be more aware. We can discover more about who we are. We can be reminded of how deeply we are loved. We can imagine how much dignity rests even within our own hearts. And in growing in our awareness, we can become more connected to the experiences of others around us and begin to see more clearly our own unique talents, strengths, and sense of purpose, core values, beliefs, and desires. And we practice with each pause, with each period of silence. We learn what triggers our reactions, and we can become more understanding, more aware of how others' unique qualities guide them. Seeing ourselves, seeing others, seeing the whole of creation more completely, we can be a peaceful presence. We can be a refuge of equanimity. We can be a new creation, all by praying. What a worthy undertaking. What will your answer be if someone asks you when you pray?